following program is exclusively produced and distributed by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc., all rights reserved. Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action. It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. Today, to commemorate the release to home video of two of celebrated director Raoul Walsh's greatest films, myself and my guest, Warner Brothers Discovery library historian pioneer George Feltenstein, will attempt to define just what makes iconic director Walsh and his films so special in the minds of classic film fans worldwide. First, the 20s come to roaring life in Raoul Walsh's classic, The Roaring Twenties, which provides star James Cagney with one of his most acclaimed and electrically charged roles. And our friends of the Criterion Collection have released this classic in one sumptuous package that includes an amazing 4K and Blu-ray transfer, so gorgeous that it has to be seen to be believed. Next, the Warner Archive has released a fantastic Blu-ray of Raoul Walsh's delightful boxing comedy, Gentleman Jim, which provides the great Errol Flynn with his favorite role. And it's a frolicking, rollicking delight, sure to please the pickiest of classic film buffs. Both The Roaring Twenties from the Criterion Collection and Gentleman Jim from the Warner Archive are available now and looking great, even as we speak. Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. George Feltenstein, welcome back yet again to DVD Classics Corner on the Air on a really special occasion with the release from the Criterion Collection of the great The Roaring Twenties and the Warner Archive Collection, the equally great Gentleman Jim. And we know who directed both, Raoul Walsh, and we're going to talk about him during the show and these two great movies. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Dick. It's great to be back with you and to be talking about a director whom I know you and I both think very highly of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, give me your feelings. First of all, we're going to devote this section to The Roaring Twenties. Give me your feeling about both Raoul Walsh and The Roaring Twenties.
Well, I don't think I'm alone in feeling Raoul Walsh is one of my favorite directors. He's in that pantheon along with Wellman and John Ford and Hitchcock and Curtiz and Minnelli and, you know, so many of the other great classic era directors that really crafted what we consider like the golden age of film. And Walsh's tenure at Warner Brothers began with the Roaring Twenties,
Right.
and he stayed at the studio for 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also have some of the films he directed at MGM, and we have even some of the films where he came back to Warner Brothers after his contract has expired.
Yeah.
And we have a great deal of his work.
Well, his last film, which I never saw,
Distant Trumpet,
was
yeah.
for Warner's.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had an impressive career as a director for 50 years, starting in 1914 all the way to 1964. He was directing many, many silents. And he also covered a lot of ground in terms of the studios he worked for.
Yeah.
He was with Fox for a long time. He had a gig at Paramount for a long time. And he made occasional visits to MGM. But really, his tenure at Warner Brothers from 1939 to 51 was really outstanding. And if you look at the list of films, it's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about the best of them. And, anytime Criterion releases one of our films, it's very much a collaborative process. And this, again, was The Roaring Twenties was one of those films where the original negative had issues in certain spots, so we needed to pull in secondary elements to fill in the areas where the negative had deficiencies. But the scanning is all done here, and then Criterion does their own restoration, and everybody benefits, and they're a wonderful partner, because when they get behind a film, they bring so much substantial context to it.
Yeah.
So it's a phenomenal package, and a 4K scan off the camera negative with a 4K disc.
Well, I have to tell
That's
you, George,
the dream.
I have to tell you, when I was watching this, first of all, when the Warner logo came up, I was like, huh? Because, I mean, talk about still frames. If you still frame any section of the Roaring Twenties, it's like a beautiful black and white painting. I mean, it is one of the most magnificent transfers I have ever seen.
I agree with you.
It's amazing. But back to Raoul Walsh. I believe Raoul Walsh had the most colorful background of any director, any classic director. I mean, this is a man who started by helping D.W. Griffith, assisted D.W. Griffith in directing Birth of a Nation. And he played John Wilkes Booth in it, and really had a good acting career. He was the male lead opposite Gloria Swanson in Sadie Thompson, and then he prepares to play the title role in the Cisco Kid, and he's driving in, I think, Arizona, and a jackrabbit jumps up, goes through the windshield.
That's how he lost his eye, right?
That's how he lost his eye. So he says, okay, I'm going to be a director. And he directs some of the greatest silent films. I mean, I'm talking about Thief of Baghdad, What Price Glory. It doesn't get any greater than that. And he was an innovator because he directed John Wayne's first starring role in The Big Trail, which was filmed, I believe, in 60 or 70 millimeter in
70 Fox Grandeur.
Fox Grandeur in 1930. And what's so strange is the picture flops badly. And he eventually moves to Paramount, and none of his films are all that remarkable and do all that well. So what is your opinion about, beginning with the Roaring Twenties, his total revitalization into this incredible, consistently incredible director. What happened? Was it Jack Warner? Was it Hal Wallace?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. It was both of them.
Yeah.
It was Hal Wallace and Jack Warner, and if you look at his Warner Brothers filmography, right up to Captain Horatio Hornblower, which I think was like one of the last films he did here. There isn't. If you look at the list of films, there's hardly anything that wasn't an out-and-out hit,
right?
Big hit,
right?
And he even had the interesting opportunity to remake one of his early Warner hits, High Sierra, and remake it as a Western with Colorado Territory, which is pretty funny. And
I am the only living person who actually thinks, and I wish I could have gotten his feelings about it, who actually thinks the second film holds together better than the first. And
I agree.
You do?
I agree. Yes,
wow.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is. He was approaching the story material from a second point of view, and it really holds together tighter. And again, kudos to Criterion. It's not restored, but they created a new HD master, dirt scratches, whatever.
Yeah.
But as a reference for people to be able to see Colorado Territory.
Yeah.
And someday I hope that we'll be able to have Colorado Territory look as good as the Roaring Twenties and High Sierra do from Criterion.
Right.
But just in our own activities here, earlier this year we released The Strawberry Blonde with Cagney, and also A Lion is in the Streets with Cagney.
Yeah.
And both of which were Walsh films.
And last year, was it last year you released Objective Burma?
It was a little longer than that, but not that that long ago. Objective Burma, and I will say, without giving anything away, we're working on two of his best films right now for Warner Archive release later this year.
Oh, I won't ask what they are. I can only...
They will be well received.
I'm sure. Now, getting back to Roaring Twenties, I mean,
yes.
This is a fantastic film from first frame to last. I also think Mark Hellinger...
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, may have been responsible for the burst of energy that Walsh maintained for the rest of his Warner career, played a significant part in it. What I love about this film, first of all, Cagney.
Right.
Orson Welles said over and over again he considered Cagney the greatest of all actors because he could go outrageously big and still stay truthful. And this performance of his, to me, it's like a bolt of electricity, and the sensitivity that the man has, and the colors. This is certainly one of the greatest parts for one of the greatest actors of all time. But do you know who I feel is, in their own way, the heart of this movie? Can you guess who I'm referring to?
Gladys George.
Yes!
Because when I think of this movie, and you got Cagney, you got Bogart, there's just so many great people.
Yeah.
And yet, I think of Gladys George, who is terribly forgotten, in my opinion.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal, and this is one of her best roles.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at replaying all of her scenes and her sensitivity, and this woman listens Spencer Tracy said listening is the most important part of acting. And
Of
this woman
course.
is not acting, listening. She's listening. You can see tiny touches that are so revealing of the character. She's 100% involved. For me, it's a thrill to watch her.
Think about also her Madam X remake at MGM.
Yeah.
That is a spectacular performance.
I've never seen it. She got an Oscar nomination for it.
Yeah. Well, I have to send you a Warner Archive DVD.
Oh, I didn't even know it was out.
Yeah. We have all these films that we put out on DVD that we're trying to get to Blu-ray, but until we do, the DVD at least gets you the opportunity to see the film. People have been really dying to have this movie not only in Blu-ray, but now they have it in 4K and Blu-ray thanks to Criterion.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier about it. And all of these things are very, very close collaborations. And then when they're done, it's a source of great pride for both companies. And we are very aligned in working together, and they're a wonderful partner in every way.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that this particular film, having such particular importance, is getting this kind of deluxe treatment.
Well,
and,
me too. And what I forgot to mention is how great it sounds. And so my final tribute and tip of the hat is to the great Ray Heindorf.
There you go.
His music of the great songs of the Roaring Twenties in the background and the foreground. I mean, this. Oh my God! I could just play the film over and over again just to hear those arrangements.
When you hear "I'm Just Wild About Harry" and the Warner Orchestra, the Warner sound of that period, it really starts in the late '30s, and it continued a distinctive audio quality that I can't verbalize.
I
But
can't
they had
either,
something.
and it wasn't the same during the 50s.
Right.
It had changed, and
That was because of the switch from optical to magnetic.
Oh.
But there was still, you can still hear, it's like a slight echo, if you will. There's something
reverberation.
that's resonant.
Yeah.
And I think the sound department here had some kind of special, you can tell the audio of a Warner movie over a Columbia movie or a Paramount movie. It's distinct.
It certainly
It's so
is.
distinct. Heindorf was the genius at Warner Brothers the way Conrad Salinger was at MGM.
Right.
You know.
Or Edward B. Powell at Fox. Right.
Exactly.
Right. We have to move on. We're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be back with George Feltenstein discussing the great Gentleman Jim.
We pause now for station identification.
DVD Classics Corner on the Air is exclusively produced and released by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc. All rights reserved. And we're back with George Feltenstein, and our subject is Gentleman Jim, a perfect movie to talk about after the Roaring Twenties. This goes back to the 1890s.
Indeed it does.
And, oh my God, how I love this film. To me, this film, Gentleman Jim, is a brother, if you will, to Strawberry Blonde.
Oh, absolutely. Especially given the time it takes place.
Exactly, and the affection for those lost days is so strong. It makes you think, why can't we be in the in the 20s. Why can't we be in the 1890s when things were so simple? But this film, Gentleman Jim, well, okay, I have so much to say, but George, you're the guest. Give me your feeling about Gentleman Jim.
Well, this was one of the films that I think this was the first Errol Flynn film I saw as a child.
Really?
So I fell in love with this movie. It was before I saw Robin Hood,
Yeah, really?
Because I was a big Flynn fan, a big film fan of and Flynn fan. Probably sometime around 6th or 7th grade, I just kind of got into a whole. That's kind of when I fell in love with Warner Brothers movies too.
Yeah.
And started exploring works of Bogart and Cagney and Flynn and Betty Davis. I was like on a kick.
Yeah.
And this is when they started to become more easy to see. Of course, they didn't look like they do now, where they're so gorgeous with the restorations we're doing.
Yeah.
But Gentleman Jim was like a notch above everything that Flynn did in certain ways. And it was his favorite role that he ever did. And that shows. And there is an affection throughout the movie for everything.
Yes.
I think that is really what comes through. This was a work of great affection by Walsh and Flynn, and Alexis Smith is wonderful, of course.
Well, and the wonderful Warner support from Alan Hale and Jack Carson. My God, and the whole cast. But you know what's amazing? I mean, if you look at Errol Flynn in Gentleman Jim, and you don't know much about him, and you say, this is the healthiest, the most beautiful man I have ever seen. And then you find out that during one of the fight scenes with Ward Bond, he had a minor heart attack. And after the film was over, this perfect specimen, to quote the title of another Flynn movie, tries to enlist and fails the physical exam due to recurrent malaria, heart murmur, various venereal diseases, and latent pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, there was no way you would guess that this man was not at the prime of his life. But, the acting, Flynn's performance, has such wit and such warmth and such perfect timing, along with his amazing footwork in the bout scenes. This is also my favorite Flynn role. And I have to give a tribute to an actor whose political leanings are totally opposite of mine. But is this not the best performance Ward Bond has ever given as John L. Sullivan? Am I crazy?
It's so moving.
Yeah. And it's so funny, that first scene when Flynn storms into his dressing room, the timing of both of them, it's one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. I mean, it's marvelous.
I just agree with everything that you said.
Yeah.
It is really quite. It's so well cast, so well photographed. Everything about it is perfect. And if you're going to introduce someone to Errol Flynn who just thinks of him as swashbuckler, this is a nice antidote to that kind of thinking, because I think that's why he also appreciated the movie, is it didn't pigeonhole him into kind of from Captain Blood bringing his stardom on. He kind of got boxed in with that. and I don't think he was terribly comfortable doing westerns, even though he made plenty of them, and they were very good.
And very profitable.
Of course.
Yeah.
But this was just, there's something about it. And you made a reference to it before. It's the same loving care from Walsh in painting a picture, theoretically, of the time, just as he did with the Strawberry Blonde.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the film works so well. And Warner Brothers was a very, very smart, well-run studio.
Yeah.
And they took advantage. If you look at the films that Walsh made here, and it's just unending in the greatness.
Yeah.
You know, we talked before, I think I mentioned High Sierra, but you know, all the pictures with Flynn, Flynn had said, you know, I don't want to work with Michael Curtiz ever again.
Yeah.
And Raoul Walsh basically became his director with Desperate Journey, and They Died with Their Boots On, and Northern Pursuit, Uncertain Glory, Objective Burma.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. They did great work together.
Yeah.
But he was great with all the actors he worked with.
Yeah.
And I think people need to give him credit for that. And the important part from my perspective is, you know, our job as stewards of these great motion pictures is to preserve them, restore them, and make them available in the best possible quality so that young people can discover their greatness, get over the issue of them being in black and white or quote-unquote old, which, of course, they are. Gentleman Jim is an 82-year-old movie. To me, you know, I don't think of it as an ancient relic. I think of it as contemporary entertainment, obviously not modern. You know, this movie was made decades before I was born, but it didn't stop me from enjoying it as a kid and continuing to support people discovering its charms. This is one of his very best. And I encourage people, as you said earlier, to explore what he did in the silent era. I mean, some of those magnificent films like What Price Glory and The Thief of Baghdad, and even going back to Regeneration, which was the film he made for Griffith, I believe.
I've never seen it.
You know, it's there's so much to learn about him. It's really phenomenal.
Well, let me give you a fact you may not have been aware of. Walsh was really hyped about doing this particular film because when Walsh was a kid, he idolized Corbett and met him when he was a boy. So this was something he was especially...
That I didn't know.
Yeah. This was something he was especially eager to do. And you can see the love and affection and warmth. And there's a lot of... I mean, this is really almost a comedy. In fact, it is a comedy, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's full of laughs, and it...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it has that wonderful, sensitive scene at the near the end between Ward Bond and Flynn. And Flynn's sensitivity, as well as Ward Bond's, is something to see. Well, enough. I mean, I think our audience knows by now how we feel about the Criterion Collection's Roaring Twenties and the Warner Archives Gentleman Jim. It's time for all you out there to really appreciate the skill, warmth, timing, and care that Raoul Walsh brought to all of his films with these two releases. And we have to go any minute now, but George, anything you want to reveal? Or...
Well, I will say, if everything goes right, soon after this this show becomes publicly broadcast or made available, we just may have a Raoul Walsh film to talk about again.
Ooh.
So, but it's too early to promise it.
All right.
So.
All right. Well, George, I want to thank you so much. I live for the times that we get. We've never met in person, which is amazing. I've always felt that you're a great friend, and I've so appreciated through the years your support for me and this show, and I can't thank you enough.
Vice versa. I look forward to the next opportunity for us to talk.
Before we close up shop for today, I want to call your attention to another fantastic upcoming Blu-ray release from the Criterion Collection, namely All That Money Can Buy, a.k.a. The Devil and Daniel Webster, which is directed with stylish flair by William Dieterle, who brings the classic short story by Stephen Vincent Benet vividly to life, with inspired visuals and unforgettable Oscar-winning score by Bernard Herrmann, and a truly diabolical performance from Walter Huston as the Devil. Take it from me, Double D, this is one masterwork you won't want to miss. See you next time. Well, that's my show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. And if you'd like to hear some of my older vintage shows, please go to www.dvdclassicscorner.net, where in addition to the broadcasts, you'll find hundreds of my print reviews of classic DVD releases. So, until next week,
keep well, keep happy, and keep listening.